want to start today with a hypothetical. Imagine you're concerned about the security of your house. Obviously, you lock your doors, but it doesn't seem to be enough, so you build a large fence, you get a guard dog, you get an expensive security system. You feel like you're protected. Then one night you have a party, you invite around a lot of friends, and you completely trash the house. You smash the windows, you break the furniture, you rip up the carpets. The house is not designed to protect against destruction from within. The US governmental system has a number of checks and balances. There are 3 branches of government, each with defined limitations and powers, each counterbalancing the other. But we're beginning to witness a scenario that the founding fathers of the country couldn't foresee. While they knew there would always be ideological differences and differences of opinion, they assumed that those in government would want to be in government and understand the role of that government. They installed few defences against destroying that government from within. The security system is not designed to protect the house from people already inside it. Now, it might seem like I'm exaggerating here. Obviously, the Republicans want to keep control of the Senate and the Congress. And obviously, Donald Trump wants to keep the glory of the presidency, even if he doesn't really like the job. But there's a glaring hypocrisy in the way that Republicans stretch House rules to give themselves the most advantage. Gerrymandering is so rampant in a lot of areas in America that Republican victory is virtually automatic. There are places where Democrats could get over 50% of the vote, but still only get a third of the seats in the state houses. And there's also the increasing ramping up of voter suppression. We saw this under Obama, and it's going to increase greatly under Donald Trump. Trump's stories about false voting and voter fraud may have initially sprung up to feed his pathetically fragile ego, but they're being parroted by other Republicans as a useful tool for passing laws further restricting voter rights. Some of this anti-democratic behavior is even more blatant. In North Carolina, the Republican governor, Pat McCrory, recently lost election to Democrat Ray Cooper. Immediately, McCrory and the Republican State House, before he was removed from the governorship as his term expired, passed massive laws stripping the governor of his rights. Thus, the incoming governor had considerably less powers, specifically the power to appoint people to state election boards. So this case is being challenged in court, but you can see the way in which that democratic institution of voting is being attacked. And sometimes it's even more blatant. They just neutralize direct democracy. In South Dakota, there was recently a ballot, a direct citizens-initiated ballot for a policy that passed. Republican lawmakers then immediately called an emergency session of the House to instantly repeal that law and block further laws of its kind being passed by ballot. The law in question was anti-corruption rules. So for decades, Republicans have been using the system to secure their power on a state and national level and do so in a way that democracy and public opinion are not going to remove them from power. This is obviously a securing of power, but how does this equate to actually destroying government? They've locked themselves inside the House, but they're not trashing it yet. Well, this is where Donald Trump comes in. He and his cabinet of the contemptible. Not merely extremists and their ideologies, they are actively opposed to a lot of the areas they've been put in charge of. Betsy DeVos is a religious fundamentalist billionaire who has been actively attacking public education for decades. She is now Secretary of Education. Scott Pruitt is a climate change denier with ties to big oil industries who has several active lawsuits against the Environmental Protection Agency. He is now the head of the Environmental Protection Agency. Tom Price was, while in government, accused of investing largely in medical supply companies and then voting for laws which directly gave him profit from those companies. He also wants to greatly reduce the already limited US healthcare system. He is now Secretary of Health and Human Services. Jeff Sessions has a history of racism and voter suppression. He is now Attorney General. The role and the goal of these people is to undermine the very departments they've been put in charge of. In their ideal America, there would be no public education, no public health care, no regulations for workers, no regulations for the environment. There would, in essence, in all these areas, be no government. And then, of course, there's Trump chief strategist Steve Bannon. At present, it seems like he is functionally acting president. That is, he is standing in for the role of president, not acting president in the way that Donald Trump is playing dress up as president. Steve Bannon is a white nationalist propagandist who allegedly once claimed, "Lenin wanted to destroy the state, and that's my goal too. I want to bring everything crashing down and destroy all of today's establishment." These people want power, they want control, they want money, but they don't want government. Whether or not there remains any checks and balances left which can stop them from doing this in America, unfortunately remains to be seen. So how does that relate to us here in New Zealand? Obviously, we're lucky enough not to have the level of extremism that exists in the US political system. While the National Party's philosophy may be one of less funding to public education or public health care, they do seem to accept that these things should exist. And while using parliamentary emergency rules to fast-track unpopular legislation or the ongoing suppression of democracy in the Canterbury region are certainly black marks against them, there's no indication that our electoral system is actually under attack. But before you get lulled into a sense of security and superiority, consider this. We may not have the partygoers inhabiting the house who are poised to dismantle it, but we also don't have an alarm system. We don't have guard dogs. We don't have tall fences. We have one branch of government. They make the laws of this country, and the parliamentary majority allows a ruling party to make those laws. Whatever the ideologies of the current parties we have in government, they accept that role and that responsibility. But if we ever elect someone into power who wishes to dismantle our government and dismantle our democracy, there are very few protections, barring direct Commonwealth intervention, that could actually prevent them from doing so. We don't have a security system, we don't have guard dogs, we don't have fences. All we have is us, the voters of New Zealand. It's our house, and we have to be very careful about who we put in charge of it. Take care and be heard.